Hi, Emily. Perhaps before we get started on AI, you could just introduce yourself.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ray. And hello, everyone. Firstly, apologies for looking a little bit, shall we say, glossy on the camera. We're experiencing a little bit of a heat wave here in Victoria. So, apologies in advance, everyone. So, I have been working under the marketing umbrella for over 20 years, Ray. And I tend to oscillate between back of house roles. By back of house roles, I mean insight, strategy, and planning, and then front of house roles, which are more involved in the communications side of things, so the executional side of things. My most recent role was actually more of a back of house role. So I headed up a customer insights team at Country Road Group. Country Road Group, for those of you who aren't familiar, is an Australian group of brands, fashion and apparel brands primarily. But previous to that, I was working in the capacity of a CMO. So I've been working on anything to do with customers for a very long time.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we're getting together today to discuss actually just a little bit about what you're doing now.
Sure. At the moment, I'm working as a fractional leader. So rather than concentrate my time with one brand or one business, I'm actually sharing the love across a number of different brands and businesses here in Australia.
Excellent, Emily. And that's probably going to be quite interesting in these AI times because they won't all be at the same point.
Exactly. Exactly. Because I do tend to, or I have started to work with smaller brands that are on a growth trajectory, but don't yet have that budget to build out a big marketing team and definitely not build out a customer insights team. And so they don't have that technology available to them
Mm.
at the moment. But they are probably the sorts of brands and businesses that would really benefit from AI because they don't have the resources or the budget to build these big
Yeah.
teams.
So we hear a lot less from the client side about AI because obviously the vendors shout about all their new shiny products. What are
That's
the,
right.
the sorts of things that you think are going to make a difference to clients? Maybe we'll start with the insight managers and the marketing teams.
Sure. So do you mean, Ray, for client side insights practitioners and the way that they will use AI
Yeah.
themselves, or the way that they will purchase, products or projects
Well,
using AI, utilizing AI,
yeah.
or a little bit
I
of both?
think we'll come to both, but let's start with how they might use it internally and then
Okay.
how they might assess the external offers.
Of course, of course. So internally, look, there's great scope to use it for a number of different things. Obviously, it can provide a lot of speed and agility to really help collate and then analyze different data from different data sets and data sets that have previously been quite siloed. So that's one of the biggest benefits, I think, because having worked client side for a number of years, one of the biggest challenges and opportunities, I guess, was that there was so much data sitting in so many different disparate teams across the business and trying to collate it and then analyze it to really piece together who our customers were, how they were feeling, what they were doing, how they were buying, when they were buying, and trying to surmise why those patterns are actually happening was probably the biggest challenge. So being able to collate that and analyze it, you know, almost at the drop of a hat, is
Mm.
probably the biggest benefit, I think, for me. But then the second thing I think is that not all client side teams have the luxury of a big budget to be able to build the team that you want to build. And so having or leaning into AI to be able to do some of that manual work, the thematic analysis, quick and dirty surveys so that you can run your own surveys, being able to again just try and summarize as much as possible is obviously a great benefit as well.
So that's the one side, using it internally. Then, as we mentioned, there's
Mm,
vendors are going to be coming along with lots of shiny tools. And
absolutely.
what sorts of things do you think are going to help? And also, how are clients expected to understand and assess the quality of what's being offered?
Look, you cannot go to a conference these days, Ray, without hearing about AI. So as long as you're able to get to these conferences and assuming you have a little bit of downtime to be able to do your own desk research, there's a lot of information out there about AI. And so there's a lot of information out there around how we as clients can benefit from it. So the information is there, but I think the most important things that vendors will need to communicate to their clients is be really, really open and transparent around how you're using AI within your business. Be really open and transparent around, which is something that we would normally be privy to anyway. How is the client data being used as well?
Mm.
Is it being used to train an LLM? I always get muddled up on that LLM model, or is it going to benefit other clients as well? It's not to say that I would necessarily be closed to something like that, but I would need the vendor to be really, really transparent around it. And I would need to understand whether there's any possibility of the vendor using synthetic data as well. Again, not something that I'm close to. I'm very, very excited about the prospect of using synthetic data. It'll be faster, it'll be cheaper. So they're, magical words to a side practitioner, but I would need the vendor to be very, very transparent around it. And I would also need to be reassured that the data and the responses can be validated using humans as well. Because whilst AI can do a lot of things, I don't know that it's quite there yet to really understand the intricacies of, human behavior and just human cognitive processes as well.
So, cheaper is always attractive, faster is always attractive. Do you have a feeling for which of the two is going to be more important, faster or cheaper?
It depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're doing because, and I can speak from my experience, when I wanted something or when I want something really, really fast, it usually means that I want something that's a little bit less complicated. And we would generally take that in-house. So we had our own MROC, so Market Research Online Community.
Yeah.
We would run that cheap and dirty and fast research ourselves. We could turn around research in 48 hours. So we were doing that anyway. And our MROC had AI built into the back end of it anyway. And so that was further speeding up that whole process. So if I want something fast and if I want something relatively uncomplicated, then I would generally bring that in-house anyway. I personally use vendors to do the really meaty stuff, really big strategic projects. I don't expect them to be really, really fast. And I never sell them into C-suite as being really fast because they require a lot of thinking. They require a lot of going back and forth. Like that partnership really gets tested between the client and the vendor. So I don't expect it to be a fast process. It would be faster and that would be great. But gosh, being able to save some money and going from, an $800,000 project to, I don't know, 300 for argument's sake would be amazing. Imagine being able to do 2 projects or 3 projects instead of 1 per year.
But if you do 3 projects, you need them only to be as 1/3 as demanding of your time.
Exactly. So you're always there, really, aren't you? Saving time on the doing, but you still need to then digest what this actually means, collate it with the business data, collate it with financial and transactional data. So you still need that time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
so maybe it's money. It's money.
Yeah.
It's definitely budget. Yeah.
Budget matters. Budget matters, that's for sure. Jumping back now to the internal side, we talked about the impact on insight managers. One of the global trends we're seeing is the insight managers being bypassed. So if we take a country like country, there are people designing clothes somewhere in the world. There are people running retail outlets somewhere in the world. Who in a traditional system would have gone to the insight manager would have gone to the agencies would have gone to the customers. That's a really long chain from that designer all the way through. with a lot of these tools now, we could envisage a lot more designers, product managers, CMOs, all sorts of people bypassing the insights team. Do you think
Yeah.
that's likely? And if so, what do we need to look out for and guard to make sure it
Yeah.
works without being a
Yeah.
disaster?
Ray, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that that's a new problem. I think that
Mm,
that's been existing for several years. I know that when I moved client side, it was all about we need to create dashboards, we need to democratize data, we need to be able to allow our clients, our stakeholders to self-serve. And that's fine until they stopped self-serving because they don't have the time, or they just didn't understand how to access that data, or even if they got to that point, how to interpret that data. So what does it actually mean? So it's always been an issue. The second thing there
mm,
is that even if they get to that point that they access the data, they're able to interpret it, they're not going to have the time to collate all of that disparate data that we talked about earlier on to really piece together what's actually happening and why it's happening. So I don't see insights teams going away anytime soon. That is precisely what insights teams do. And that's what we're trained to do. We're trained
mm.
all the pieces together, to stitch all the pieces together to enable us to tell that cohesive story. And I just don't see non-insights practitioners being able to do that. I've seen lots of different teams try to do that. And then when we would invariably get involved, be like, no, you actually forgot this bit, and you didn't take this bit into effect, you didn't incorporate this part of the
Yeah.
data. You didn't think about, the macro trends that are actually happening on a global scale. You didn't think about the cultural forces that are actually, causing consumers to think and behave a certain way. So they will be able to get part of it or get to part of it. They won't be able to answer the whole question. So honestly, my heart of hearts, I do not see insights teams going anywhere soon.
Excellent.
I
So we're
hope
going
not.
to have almost there, but we're going to have some people in the audience who are working on new AI solutions. They
Sure.
want to start selling them. What sorts of things should they be focusing on, and what sort of things should they be saying to companies who are going to be using and benefiting from them? Because one of the problems is they will often say, "Oh, we're very clever. We've got a lot of AI," and that's
Mm.
neither here nor there.
Yeah, yeah. I think trying to use AI as a selling point is just not going to cut it these days, because everyone's using AI in one form or another. We're all using it in our personal lives as well as in our professional lives. You really need to explain, what is it that you're actually using? How are you using it? What is the benefit to your particular business? Like, why does your agency or consultancy feel the need to use it? How is it benefiting you? And then how is it going to benefit me? What am I actually going to gain from it? Am I going to get things faster? Am I going to get things cheaper? Is it just going to be smarter? Is it a combination of all three? Or is there anything else that I'm going to benefit from it? So I really need to understand those
Mm,
benefits. One thing that would really excite me, and it was something that I wanted to get to in my previous role, and definitely something that I want to explore in the future, is using AI for predictive analytics and building predictive analytical models, because you can understand, or you can get to a point where you understand what's happening now, which is wonderful, but you want to be able to use that knowledge to predict what's going to happen in the future. So if I were
mm,
to pull lever A, what will be the impact of that? And if I were to pull lever B, what will be the impact of that? Of course, our wonderful data scientists can do that anyway, but gosh, that takes a long time. So being able to utilize AI to enable us to do that at a drop of a hat would be amazing. So if there were consultancies and agencies out there that are doing that, some sort of plug-in, that'd be incredible.
Emily, that's fantastic. Thanks for your time, and let's look forward to some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you.